She saw her ex-husband on the news, standing in a flood, holding a child. Redemption, trauma, human courage. I was halfway through folding laundry when the television caught my attention. The volume was low, just a droning background to the hum of the washing machine, until I saw him. The reporter's voice cracked with urgency. Rescue efforts continue in Cedar Valley, where record floods have displaced hundreds. Among the volunteers, and there he was, Daniel, standing knee-deep in muddy water, cradling a small child in his arms. His face was soaked, his eyes strained but unmistakable. My ex-husband. For a moment I forgot to breathe. The towel slipped from my hand, hitting the floor. It had been 5 years since I'd seen him. 5 years since the divorce papers, the courtroom silence, the bitter words we threw like knives. I told myself I'd moved on, that the past had dissolved like rain down a drain. But seeing him there, the flood wasn't just outside, it was inside me too. The reporter continued. This man, Daniel Carter, has been leading local volunteers for over 48 hours without rest. I sat down slowly, my pulse hammering. Daniel, who used to forget to water the plants. Daniel, who couldn't even wake up to an alarm without hitting snooze 3 times. Daniel, who left when things got hard, and now he was out there, saving people. My phone buzzed. It was my sister Nina. Did you just see the news? She asked breathlessly. Yeah, I whispered. That's him, isn't it? Yeah, silence. Then, you okay? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to sound strong and detached, but my throat tightened. I don't know. That night I couldn't sleep. The sound of rain against the window felt heavier than usual, like the sky itself was grieving. I kept thinking about the child he was holding. A little girl, maybe 4 or 5, clinging to him as if she trusted him with her whole world. It stirred something I'd buried. The last time I saw Daniel hold a child was... No, I couldn't go there, but memory is cruel. I saw the hospital room again, the pale light, the machines beeping steadily, and our baby girl lying there wrapped in too many wires for such tiny arms. We lost her before she even had a name. That was the day something inside both of us broke. He drowned in silence after that. I drowned in anger, and together, we drowned our marriage. The next morning, I made coffee but couldn't drink it. The rain outside hadn't stopped. The anchor on the TV said the flooding had worsened. Cedar Valley was being evacuated. I didn't know why I did it, but I packed a small bag. A jacket, water bottle, flashlight. It wasn't like I planned to go there. I told myself I just wanted to see how bad it was. By afternoon, I was on the highway, wipers thrashing against the downpour. My heart pounded with every mile. What was I doing? I had no right to see him. We hadn't spoken since the divorce hearing. No calls, no letters, nothing. But love doesn't always die cleanly. Sometimes it stays, quiet and bruised, waiting for moments like this to remind you it never left. When I reached Cedar Valley, the sky was gray and swollen. Streets were rivers. The sound of helicopters echoed above. Volunteers in bright jackets moved in lines handing out blankets, lifting children onto boats. I parked near the shelter, a high school gym now filled with cots and people wrapped in foil blankets. The air smelled like wet earth and disinfectant, and then I saw him. He was standing by the entrance, soaked again, hair plastered to his forehead, handing out bottles of water. His eyes had new lines around them, deeper, heavier, but the same warmth flickered there when he smiled at the people passing by. I froze behind the crowd, unsure what to do. Then, as if the universe wanted to punish me for my hesitation, his gaze lifted straight into mine. He blinked, stunned. For a long, unbearable second, no one else existed. Then his lips parted slightly. Clara? I felt my throat close. I managed a nod, small and unsure. He took a step closer, disbelief painted on his face. What are you doing here? I saw the news, I said quietly. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. He looked away, exhaling shakily. You shouldn't have come. It's dangerous. I could say the same to you. A small smile tugged at his lips. That same half-smile he used to give when he didn't know what else to say. Yeah, I guess you could. For a moment, everything felt suspended. The rain, the chaos, all of it faded around us. Then a young woman shouted, Daniel? We need you by the trucks. He turned, then back to me. Stay here, please, don't go anywhere. And just like that, he ran off into the rain again, the same man I once thought would never run toward anything hard. I stood there, drenched in something that wasn't just water. By nightfall, I volunteered at the shelter, helping hand out meals. Every so often I caught glimpses of him, lifting boxes, comforting people, wading through knee-deep water like it was nothing. He'd changed. Or maybe he'd simply become the man I always wished he'd been. When the generators flickered and the lights dimmed, I found him sitting on a bench outside, exhausted. I walked over quietly, holding a cup of coffee. "Still take it black?" I asked softly. He looked up, surprised, then chuckled. "You remember? Some things don't fade," I said. He took the cup, our fingers brushing. The warmth between us was more than the coffee. After a long pause, he said, "I didn't expect to ever see you again." Neither did I. The silence that followed wasn't bitter like before. It was gentle, heavy, but healing. He looked out into the floodwaters shimmering under the rescue lights. "You know, after what happened, I thought I'd never feel anything again. I blame myself every day." I swallowed hard. "You weren't the only one." His jaw tightened. "No, but I was the one who left." The rain began again. Slow, steady. It blurred the edges of his face, but I could still see the guilt in his eyes. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel anger toward him. Only understanding, because sometimes grief doesn't make villains. It just makes two people who don't know how to keep holding each other when everything hurts. "Daniel," I whispered, my voice trembling, "why are you here, risking your life like this?" He looked at me, eyes tired but sure. "Because I couldn't save her. But maybe I can save someone else." The words hit me like lightning. I looked away, blinking hard as tears mixed with the rain. He didn't move closer. He didn't need to. The truth between us was already flooding everything in its path. Hat night, I stayed at the shelter, helping where I could. It wasn't planned. I just couldn't bring myself to leave. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was something softer I didn't have the courage to name. The gym was crowded with families wrapped in thin blankets, their eyes hollow with exhaustion. The smell of wet clothes and instant noodles filled the air. Children cried quietly in their mother's arms. I watched Daniel move among them, calm, focused, gentle. The man who once couldn't even face our pain now faced the suffering of strangers like it was his purpose. When the lights flickered again, I found myself beside him handing out food packs. "Careful," he said when my hands trembled slightly. "You're tired." "I'm fine," I replied, forcing a small smile. "You look worse." He gave a tired laugh. "Still can't win an argument with you." I wanted to tease him back, but my throat felt heavy. Seeing him like this, so human, so changed, hurt in a way that almost felt like hope. By dawn, the rain had eased. The clouds still hung low, but for the first time in days, a faint light broke through. Daniel and I sat outside the shelter steps, steam rising from our cups. He rubbed his eyes. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "I used to hate storms. Couldn't stand the sound of rain after everything." He paused, staring into the horizon. "Now I work in them." "Why?" I asked. "Because it reminds me that pain doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it just changes shape." I stared at him, unsure what to say. He'd found peace in the one thing that once tore us apart. A truck rolled by, splashing through puddles, and the volunteers began shouting directions again. I stood up to help, but Daniel touched my wrist gently. "Clara," he said softly. I froze. He hadn't said my name like that in years, like it still meant something. He continued. "After she died, I didn't just lose her. I lost myself. I kept waiting for someone to forgive me, but it was never going to happen. Not until I forgave myself first." I blinked back tears. "And did you?" He gave a small broken smile. "Almost. Seeing you here. It feels like maybe I can finish forgiving the rest." The air between us was fragile, tender, filled with everything we'd never said. Then a volunteer ran toward him, shouting, "We've got a trapped family near the bridge. We need another driver." Daniel stood immediately. "I'll go." "Wait," I said, grabbing his arm. "You haven't rested." He looked at me, eyes calm, resolute. "Some things can't wait." I wanted to argue, to beg him not to go. But I saw the conviction in his face, the same strength that used to scare me because I didn't recognize it then. He squeezed my hand once before running, off toward the trucks. I watched until he disappeared behind the floodlights. Hours passed. The rain returned briefly, light and cold. The volunteers worked like ghosts. The bridge area had collapsed partially, making rescues nearly impossible. My heart pounded every time a truck came back, every time I didn't see him among the returning faces. Then, around dusk, one of the rescuers approached, his jacket drenched. "We got them all out," he said breathlessly. One of the drivers stayed behind to make sure the last kid got across safely. My chest tightened. "Who?" He hesitated. "Daniel Carter." He hesitated. "Daniel Carter." The world tilted. I ran before I realized it, through mud and chaos, until I reached the riverside. There he was, sitting by the wrecked bridge, clothes soaked, cradling a little boy wrapped in a rescue blanket. The boy looked scared but unharmed. Daniel's hands shook as he passed the child to the medics. Then he turned, seeing me standing there. "You're crazy," I said, half laughing, half crying. He smiled weakly. "You always did say that." I knelt beside him. His skin was cold, his breath shallow, but his eyes were steady. calmer than I'd ever seen. "You saved him," I whispered. He shrugged slightly. "Maybe it's what I was supposed to do all along." "You don't have to keep punishing yourself, Daniel," I said. "You've done enough." He looked at me for a long moment. "Then maybe it's time I came home." The words broke something inside me. Home. Not the house we lost, not the life that fell apart, but the space between us that was finally finding its way back. I reached for his hand. "There's still a place for you," I said softly. He smiled. Tired, real, free. "I know." 2 weeks later, the floodwaters receded. The valley slowly returned to life. Daniel and I stayed to help rebuild. The air smelled of damp earth and beginnings. One afternoon, as the sun slipped through broken clouds, I found him standing by the schoolyard, helping a group of kids plant trees. He turned when he saw me. "Look," he said, pointing to a sapling. "They're calling it hope." I laughed, tears pricking my eyes. "Of course they are." We stood there quietly, watching the children laugh, their shoes sinking into soft mud, their faces glowing in the light. He reached out, brushing my hand lightly. "You know," he said, "I thought I'd never deserve happiness again. And now?" He looked at me, that same boyish grin returning. "Now I think maybe it was just waiting for me to stop running." I smiled, leaning into his shoulder. "You always did need to be chased by a storm to find your way," he chuckled. "Guess I finally learned to walk in the rain." Weeks later, a letter arrived at my doorstep. No return address, just my name in his handwriting. Inside was a photo, the flood rescue, him holding the child, muddy and tired, but alive. On the back, he'd written one line, "Sometimes the storm gives back what it once took." I sat there for a long time, the words soaking through me like sunlight after years of rain. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel broken. I just felt alive. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Tale Story House for more stories that remind us, even after the storm, love still finds its way home.